The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
stationed atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long.
Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, live from the Great White North, in the Caribou region, on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on the SOR radio network. You can also check us out on Periscope TV every Monday through Friday night. You head to our website, spacedoutradio.com. You can shop our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, watch great videos from UFO seekers, Contact TV, and our YouTube channel where we store our archives is youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. I know we're having some microphone issues here. I dropped my microphone today. I am really trying hard to keep this thing going. I may have to get a little creative during this interview. What happens when your microphone falls just before showtime? You decide that probably not a good idea to have a spare. But nonetheless, the show must go on, so we are going to do our best here. So bear with us. To some, the power of crystals and the healing and calming effects they have are overwhelming, which is why, for instance, many people who are spiritual have salt lamps in their house. Me personally, I have 2 of them. I find sodalite also calms me down. When you look at its properties, it helps calm creative minds, depression, and anxiety. Leela Hutchison is with us tonight. Hutchison, no N. She's a graduate gemologist from Gemological Institute of America. She's an explorer, researcher, and publisher author on crystals, gems, and minerals. Her new book, Journey into the Giant Selenite Crystal Caves of Mexico. This is a special occasion. So, let's get her going. How you doing, Leela? Welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. How are you?
Hi, Dave. I'm excellent, and happy full moon tonight in Sagittarius. So thank you for having me on the show.
I'm very glad to have you on the show as well, and I'm going to be battling these microphone problems pretty much all night. I got to figure something out here, because I know everything is kind of screwed up right now with everything. So we are battling.
Well, you sound loud and clear.
Yes. We are trying. To you I am, but across the broadcast, I am not. I'm sounding very quiet. And for those who are listening, I know I'm reading the comments. Turn it up. I've got it cranked. So we're working on it. You got to be patient, audience. Be patient. It's just the way it is. We'll figure something out here as we continue on. Leela, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. I'd love to share with your audience. I think the most important thing about this crystal journey that you and I are going to take tonight, Dave, is to share that in 2000, the world was about to discover that the largest crystals on the planet were 1,000 feet down in northern Chihuahua, Mexico. And it was inside a large lead, silver, and zinc working mine. Over 200 years they had been working this mine. When they punched a hole in the bedrock, and inside they found, in this steaming 100 to 36 degree temperature and total darkness, these massive selenite crystals that were growing. They were over 550,000 years old. They weighed 60 tons, the largest one. They were as large as sequoia trees, maybe 6 to 14 feet across. Massive. So little did the world know that we were going to do a deep dive and explore these crystals. So how does that involve me? Well, in January of 2001, I was to Sedona, Arizona, when I got a call from someone that had contacts with the Chihuahuan Mexican government and asked me to be a part of a government expedition to go into these crystals that were punched in a hole in bedrock 1,000 feet below the Earth's surface and help the Mexican government and the mining officials explore what this cave was all about. So that's what I want to share first off, because this is what really is going to be our main topic tonight, is these world's largest crystals. Many people still, after all these years, do not know about these giant crystals.
Mm-hmm. You know what? It's very interesting to see how this is going to work tonight, because I just want to let our audience know I've transferred over to my cell phone here, so hopefully we're going to get a little bit better sound as the quality. We're trying to improve the quality of the microphone and the sound tonight. So one of the things that I wanted to go over with you, Leela, how did you get interested in crystals and gems? I mean, for most of us out there, we know that people are all over these things. We know that people are, head over heels the last 10 years as they finally start to go into their own spirituality and find out about crystals and gems. How did you end up coming along this path?
Okay. Well, that's a really good point, Dave. And I guess apparently you've noticed, I've certainly noticed, we're in another wave of crystal energy and awakening. We've got more people that are crazy about crystals, that just can't seem to possess enough for them and want to know more of the deeper mysteries of crystals. So we're going through another wave of this, and probably the millennials are really this time waking up to, like, wow, what is this technology? I call it like an organic technology all about. right? We're all incredibly drawn to it. So I grew up in the desert in El Paso, Texas, and El Paso had a college. It was called Texas Western College, and it was a mining and metallurgical college at the time. And why would that be important? Well, there are so many minerals in the Chihuahuan Desert. It's over 200,000 square miles of desert. It's one of the largest deserts in the world, and tremendous amount of all kinds of minerals are found in El Paso, in New Mexico, and Mexico. So as a kid, we would go, I think like a lot of people back then, we would have these picnics. We would do four-wheel drives. We had dune buggies. We'd go out into the desert. We'd go up into the canyons, and we would hike and find all these incredible rocks. We didn't know anything about them at that time. And fossils. We'd turn them over, and we'd see all of these incredible shells and fossils. And it was so fascinating because it didn't relate to anything in our lives. We just really didn't understand it. But it was everywhere. And so it was a very popular college at the time, and then it converted into University of Texas at El Paso. But really, that was the mainstay of it. And so as a kid, hiking and hanging out and playing around in the desert and shooting guns and doing all kinds of things, we just, rocks and crystals have just been part of my everyday life in so many ways. So that was as a kid. And so I sort of forgot all about my trips and journeys. My parents would take me to White Sands Missile Range. Have you ever heard of that before, Dave?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so the White Sands National Monument is 275 square miles of gypsum, which is the same material that the selenite crystals are made out of. All right, they're just tiny microscopic grains of crystal that make and comprise of these gorgeous white sand dunes, and they continue to grow. Well, I had no idea that the white sands were connected to the large giant selenite crystals down in Mexico. So that was another piece. So as a kid, we were rolling around playing in these brilliant white sand dunes. And wouldn't you know, Oppenheimer decided to begin testing the atomic bomb in this same area. And Werner von Braun from World War II was there. And Project Paperclip, and they were doing a tremendous amount of testing of missiles and firing them out of white sands. Now, why would they be there, of all places? All there. So there's been a lot of connection as a kid, and then as I got older, I kind of left all that behind. I didn't think much about it until I got an invitation. And this invitation took me into Quincy, California, up the Feather River. And I had met this, and this is a story in my book. I had met this, I called him a wild man because he was a Vietnam vet, but Ray was kind of crazy. And he lived in that area, and he came back on a journey one time, a trip that he had taken there, with a backpack full of these gorgeous quartz crystals. And my friend had worked with this guy. They worked in the over in the East Bay in Oakland on the docks. And he had shown me these beautiful virgin quartz crystals that they were freshly dug out of the ground. And I said, my God, where did you find these? And so I talked them into a journey to go up to Quincy. And this was in 1997, 98. And we went on these very, very rugged logging roads that had been washed out. And we went to a place where we stopped the truck and we scrambled almost vertical. That's how steep the mountain was, to the top, and climbed into and under this gorgeous oak tree, where on the tips of the root system, silicon dioxide, which is what quartz crystals is comprised of, was growing and dripping and making crystals. So the two guys went into the hole and went deep down into under the root system, and there was a hole there that other people had come in. These other rock hands had been digging there, and we all left with backpacks full of these gorgeous quartz crystals. Well, that kind of did it for me. I didn't even really understand what I had my hands on. When we took the crystals out of the earth, they were black. And I didn't even get that. They were beautiful colors, though. They looked black, but they were really wet. And as soon as they dried, all of the colors, there was pink and copper colors. It was everything. Sometimes when you look into quartz crystals, you'll see rainbows. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I have. And I actually have a couple of them shining in my windows as we speak.
There you go. So those are those layers of water inclusions that create those rainbows. And I was seeing these crystals in the making. And when I pulled them out of underneath the oak tree, they were stopped growing, of course, because they weren't receiving the water. So it was just a complete mystery to me how this was all created at the time. I didn't know much about it. And it was in the summer of 1998 that we did that. We camped up there in the Feather River. It was really awesome. And I just kind of buried that memory until after I'd gone into the large crystal caves down in Mexico and linked those two back together again. Because I did remember coming home going, wow, now why would I be going underground digging for crystals? I was terrified. I thought I was going to suffocate and die. And then 3 years later, became one of the greatest challenges in my life, where we really did risk our lives to go into these crystal caves because of the severe hostile conditions and environment. So let me tell you a little bit about that. So that journey, that complete love of finding those crystals, and I took that backpack and I brought it back home where I lived in Northern California. And those crystals were talking to me. And they told me that I wasn't allowed to keep any of them except 3. So I took that whole backpack out and down into this downtown in the streets of San Rafael. And I gave every one of those crystals away. So I couldn't sleep at night. They were just saying, these aren't for you. These are to be given. Right? To open up and share the light and the information, whatever that may be for each person. So that's how that went. And then when we went into the giant crystal caves, the conditions were just unbelievable. You're talking about 136 degrees of these high temperatures, and where the crystals grew out of from the walls and with the water, because it sat on a top of a pinch of magma from an aquifer, and through the bedrock and the cracks and fissures in the bedrock, the crystals started to grow from the cave walls. So it was 100% humidity, very hot temperatures, 128 degrees. And if we had not opened that pocket, it would have been a solid mass of crystals. So that was, and that, now we get into the power of the crystals. That changed, I would say, I mean, would you, I think you would know this about crystals in your blood. You know, we have blood crystals.
Definitely.
Okay?
Definitely.
Yeah, so when I exposed my brain, to this extreme condition, and I was in that first cave for about 42 minutes, which was really kind of unheard of. People go unconscious after 30 and can die. We all risked our lives to be in there. I believe that changed me completely. I think it boiled, near boiling, my blood crystals. Because even at 106, you take a child, you take them to the, you have a son. So if your son was sick with the flu or a high fever and you couldn't bring it down, you would take him to the hospital. At 106, you're in danger. So if you go unconscious. So that's what happened to us. We didn't go unconscious, but darn near very close. And I think that experience really changed my life. And when I came out of there, I was I don't even know. I would say, in a sense, devastated. It wrecked my whole reality. It took me to a new perspective of what's in the earth, and it shocked me. And it made me realize I didn't know anything. I didn't know a thing about our earth. And so I had a burning desire after that and went to school at Gemological Institute of America because I couldn't even intelligently speak about crystals. I really didn't know anything about them, but I wanted to. And so now, for 17 years, I've been doing a tremendous amount of research and meditation and working with these crystals in my life every day. So that's kind of my story from beginning to end.
Why do you think they've become so popular in today's spiritual culture? Because, I remember way before I got into this, I mean, if you went to a flea market or you went, into the shopping mall, it was rare to see someone selling any sort of crystals whatsoever. And now you have people all over the place pawning them off, and they are not cheap. They are not cheap. I mean,
no.
I remember going to a local flea market here, spending $210 on 3 rocks. Now, granted, that came with like a 75-pound salt lamp, which was brutal to carry.
Yes.
But, I mean, the main thing is, with the popularity of them, these things for literally an ounce or a quarter of an ounce of rock are extremely expensive.
Okay, so I totally agree with you. And I think what the popularity is obviously it is our nature to evolve. Everything evolves into a new form, and maybe not entirely different, but it changes. So I would say the popularity is that we're understanding that these crystals hold information. Wouldn't you agree? And we're finally going like, wait, it's been in front of us all this time, but we didn't understand or realize what they are. And even though we still don't totally understand what they are, there's something inside of us, and I'm sure your listeners would agree with this, that there is such a connection and affinity with these crystals that we know they hold information. We may not articulate it, we don't understand it, but I think deep down inside, we do understand it. Very much. And I think that is the reason why that's more popular than ever. And the millennials and the younger ones, I totally believe that these younger generations have higher coding DNA that's more activated, subtones, like harmonics that we can't see. They're holographic, they've come in, they've been birthed with a higher awareness that they may not even know that they're aware, but they've evolved and they've come back with a higher awareness. And these people, this particular generation or generations have an affinity like we haven't seen. So that's why I think there's such a popularity to it. We've got evolution going on with the human species. We're starting to have like a mind meld. We're having more of a relationship with the data transfer and the information in crystals, and realizing that they've always had the data. They have information. They're sentient living beings.
But for a lot of these people who are selling these crystals, this is where I get a little bit concerned, because what I notice happening when I see these people selling these crystals is, where do they get their information from? Where do they get these so-called powers from these crystals? This is what confuses me about this, because literally, I think I speak for myself. I can hold crystals, and like right now, I pick up a piece of sodalite.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and to me, it calms me down. I know, because I've read up on the properties of sodalite. I know that it is for creative people. It works best for left-handed people. It helps people who suffer from depression and anxiety to help calm them down, which I suffer from both.
Mm-hmm, I
But
know.
But the big thing that I'm trying to figure out is who is the one who does this research? I mean, these stones are thousands, if not millions of years. How are we defining the properties of these stones?
Mm-hmm. Good question. Well, I think what happens is you do have some kind of, and we'll have to go back several years, we've had some kind of consensus on these things. I think one of the people that has come forward about a number of crystals is the prophet and seer Edgar Cayce. Okay? So he downloaded, with channeling. I think some of this comes through with channeling, and some of these things don't agree with each other. I totally understand what you're saying, because I don't have the answers to that either. And I'm not a proponent of going out and buying crystals and selling them to people of a lot of different natures, various different kinds, and saying this is what it does. I have my own personal experience. But I think there's, at some time there has to be a consensus. There has been that there's a number of people that have had similar experiences, and there must have been an agreement. Now, I think the main Bible is Love is in the Earth by Melody. It's an incredible compendium of, crystals A to Z. Have you heard of her?
No, I haven't heard of her.
Okay, well, this is, I totally recommend you get this book. And you can find a lot of information. Melody is probably what I consider the premier, first and foremost, an expert, you would say, a channeler of an incredible download of information on these different crystals. And they're pretty accurate. And I can only say that they're accurate because I've held these and I've acquired a lot of various crystals, and they certainly do have these properties. Now, that's on the channeling side. Let me tell you the other side of this. There is another professor when I was at GIA, and his name, it's a Japanese name, and it's similar to Emoto's, which is the guy who wrote The Messages in Water, the crystals. He's died now. You know who he was, Dr. Emoto? Maybe you don't.
No, I'm not that familiar with the whole, history behind the crystals.
No, these are just parts and parcel. But when I was in GIA in 2006, we had this Japanese professor who had a lab come to GIA and do a presentation of the correlation between precious gemstones and what areas of the body that it healed or ameliorated certain imbalances. Okay? They demonstrably proved that there was a connection of healing from the energy of sapphire to the nervous system. Okay? That was so astonishing for GIA, they never even talked about it again. It was never, ever really promoted. So that, that blew my mind. I said, all right, now we're getting somewhere. Now we're having science really come forward. So it's not just New Age, metaphysical, and it's not just channeling. So there's two sides of it.
Right. That's really interesting in regards to that, because, the big thing that I noticed with these crystals and the people who are selling them today is, are they learning it straight from books? Are they going to school for it? Because for the most part, some of the representatives that are selling these crystals, it's like a New Age snake oil salesperson. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And I don't know if I'm being taken advantage of. I don't know if the other people who are buying these are being taken advantage of. I do know that sometimes I hold a crystal, it feels really good in my hands. Other times it feels like I'm being stabbed with pins. I don't know what that means. I just know that when it feels like I'm being stabbed with pins, that's that's probably not a good one for me. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Yes, you're right on. It isn't a good one for you. But see, this is what I love about it. I always go with, you got to go with your own experience. You really do. At the end of the day. But, like any industry, there are people who take Mother Earth, take the resources, and are greedy, and they lie about it. They'll say anything. They'll say things like virgin crystals. Nobody says virgin crystals. But it's rare. Once, many times you go to these gem and mineral shows, and these crystals have been handled by hundreds of people. You don't even know the source of it. So, yes, there is a lot of abuse, I think, in that. There are opportunities. People really don't know what they have. They're just making a living, Dave. And I've seen a lot. And I think one of those, I hope this doesn't offend your listeners, but it's like the crystal bowls. Have you ever heard the crystal bowls?
I have heard crystal bowls, yes.
Well, there's been all kinds of claims that these are pure quartz crystal, ground up with ruby or sapphire or labradorite or gold to create these high frequency tones. Well, that may be so, but most likely this is synthetic quartz. It's not, crushed real rock quartz crystal. So we have a lot of misinterpretations. That's why being at GIA, what is the function of a gemologist? Well, they're to help and assist authenticate what a true gemstone is, a true crystal. So when we call them gemstones, what we're talking about is the quality, the highest quality, clarity, deepest color of a crystal. So all minerals crystallize, or I should say most minerals crystallize. So you have a dense material, it's opaque, and then when it becomes crystallized, it can become gem-like. And if it's a gem-like, that means it's the highest, they'll make the most money from it by acquiring and then cutting it. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It still kind of scares me a little bit when I hear someone who is supposedly an expert on this trying to sell me $100 rock or crystal when they're telling me it has all of these powers and it's going to cleanse my room and maybe, do the laundry or the dishes or something along those points, and it never seems to.
Okay. Well, okay, so that's unfortunate. And I think it's one of those things that I would just recommend when you go to look at a crystal, if you're drawn to something, that's going to be way more important than having somebody tell you what it is. And a lot of people will tell you they talk to them. The crystals will talk to them. And based on that, they'll take them home. And they have an amazing relationship with them. All kinds of crystals, not just quartz. So I would recommend that, very importantly, just have your own relationship and your own experience with them.
Is that what it's about, is having your own experience with them?
I do. I think so. But see, I'm about that on everything. I'm about how I believe is that I can't hold a truth for you as you can't hold a truth for me. I can tell you my experience. So I believe whatever this journey is that we're all on this earth, it's about us all having a personal experience. And I find it really boring to be with people who tell me their experience and then expect me to make it my truth. Because I just don't think that's the way it works. I think we're all having our own experiences. And then so you go with that. And then you say, hey, this is what I believe this is. This is based on my own cosmology, my own, meditation. I've been deep with this. I've thought about this, not just something off the cuff. And then you share it. And then somebody says, you know what? I'll look into that. I'll sit with it and see how that feels. So yeah, I do. I think crystals are experiential.
So in other words, what they are is every crystal will affect someone else differently. That's what you're saying is, you choose them for you and not for anybody else.
In that sense, when you want to use it for healing. Now, look, people have come to me and I've acquired diamonds and rubies and beautiful sapphires for people because of how they look, not what they do. So that's a different thing as a gemologist. So this gets a little confusing, I know. But remember, there's different reasons, there's different agendas to have a crystal. So having a sapphire ring or a diamond on your hand may be for the energy, but it also may be just because of its beauty. So then in that case, you're not buying it for the, somebody telling you what the energy is about. It's just about...
No, I can understand that, and I can appreciate that. I'm more concerned about, the crystals, the lapis lazuli and the tannerite, and not tannerite. That's explosives. But
I didn't know that.
I'll tell you why I said that. My buddy Bazooka Joe is behind me. He has graciously raced over here to try and fix my microphone, and he keeps telling me he's going to allow me to shoot tannerite to blow up some garden gnomes because I don't like the garden gnomes. So that was the first thing that kind of popped into my mind. But when it comes to crystals, I mean, you got, whether it's rubies, whether it's quartz, agate, tiger's eye, whatever it may be, there are people who are saying that they are having profound effects by these types of crystals. All right. And when you are sitting there using these crystals and you are trying your damnedest to make things happen and make yourself feel better, and you go into these stores and they're telling you, okay, this crystal is going to help you with pain, so you should wear this around your neck, and this one you should, put in your socks at night. This is what I'm getting concerned of, is we have people who are literally, sitting in these health food stores or these gem stores that are out there telling you what you should and shouldn't do. You get a rock about an inch big and they're charging like $10 for it or $25 for it, and telling you this is going to do absolute wonders for your body. And people are buying that up because we've been told over the last number of years, hey, don't trust doctors. Don't trust the medical, they're all about money and profit. They're not about helping because, let's face it, healthy people are not a profitable people. So we take things into our own hand. And I guess that's where, Leela, I have a concern and a real worry for people who are investing literally hundreds of hard-earned dollars that they may or may not have in these crystals because they feel that they could actually heal or cut down on pain or, like I said, do the laundry, make dinner, start the car.
What can I say? I agree with you. My work is really just bringing beauty and joy of, something of a wonder into people's lives to understand that the whole mantle of Earth's crust, I mean, you've got the crust that is all silica dioxide, right? It's got that in almost every geological mineral that there is. It's got that as a basis. So we're living in a field of frequencies coming from these crystals. So I'm happy to talk to you about this, but it's really not, I don't think you really had me on the show tonight to talk about.
No. And you know what, you're absolutely right. I'm just, making conversation because we don't talk a lot about gems and crystals here. And it's just one of the things, because I'll be honest with you, I like them. I go into the shops. I love collecting the orbs. When you get people, they round up those orbs. I love those. I have like a 5-pin bowling ball size of sodalite.
Wow,
and
I love that. You mean you're talking? No, I know what you're saying, Dave. You mean the sphere orbs. When you talk about orbs,
yes,
I'm talking about. In fact, I was going to ask you about this tonight. Haven't you had experiences out in the forest where you've seen those balls of light?
Oh yes. Oh
yeah.
Yes.
Those are the orbs. I wanted to talk to you and ask you about these orbs because I think they're kind of connected in the same realm for some reason. I'm not really sure about it, but I wanted you to share with me a little bit about the orbs in the forest. But what you're speaking of are the spheres. So what they do is they take the machines,
Yes.
tumble them into round spheres, and those are really cool. And you have one in Sodalite, which I think is great.
Yeah, and you know, like, I like them. I do. I guess getting into the conversation, I got a little too into it, is that I do have concern, because the one thing I hate about this field, Leela, is there are so many people trying to take advantage of good people. And there are very good people out there who don't know any better because they've tried everything else, and this may be their last resort or their second or third last resort on where they go in order to try and get healthy or get help or to calm themselves down because they don't like the effects of drugs. And when I see people, you know, making snake oil claims, it just really bugs me. Now, I'm not saying you were doing that. Don't get me wrong.
Oh,
I'm
I don't
not
think
saying you were doing.
No, I don't do that. I don't.
Okay, good, because I don't want you thinking that at all. But, you know, in just the whole part of the conversation, it just really picks my butt to know that this to me is one of the new age ripoffs that we are seeing in some of these stores who are charging $3, $4, $5 for a little rock that's been shined.
No, it's unfortunate, but I don't think we're going to stop that. I just don't. I mean, it's, again, people are going to love, they're going to buy what they're going to buy. And, you know, I think we just have to say, one of the things you say is like buyer beware, you know, you just be aware of what's going on, be aware and beware.
Leela, I have a question coming from the chat room from Bill here, and he is asking,
Hi, Bill.
Is selenite crystal, in your opinion, effective in strengthening telepathic abilities?
Yes, I believe it. I absolutely believe it. Yes, and let me tell you what my experience is and what I learned, because once I went in those caves, I didn't really understand what selenite was, so I had to learn too. So selenite has striations, all right, in the crystal. So when you rock it, you know, so you can see the light. It's like a chatoyancy. It's got like a cat's eye to it. It moves. So there's a lot of light coming through. So then you start to think about this. All right, so now you've got a salt of the earth that crystallizes into this beautiful white pearlescence light. So what you start to think about, okay, well, that kind of works with bones. And the light through comes through, and this is now. I know I'm telling you something that I learned from Katrina Raphael, and she wrote about the Book of Stones. And then you've got Robert Simmons, and you know he's written the Book of Stones, and you'll find that selenite is considered. He says that it's considered, and I believe it myself, it's a stone of the new consciousness, that there's a number of new crystals that came on after 2000 that are really stones to help people awaken their consciousness. Not so much we're not talking about ameliorating imbalances in the body. Now we're talking about increasing frequency and consciousness of the humans. So I would say, Bill, yes, when I sit with selenite and I meditate, it's made me feel, and I've experienced a lot of psychic abilities. A lot. And I've done this for a number of years. But then again, Dave, I've had a very different experience. I went into those crystal caves and it boiled my blood. So it changed me energetically because I was surrounded by huge amount of crystals. Have you seen online? Have you had or researched it at all?
No.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm just trying to. We're trying to figure out whether or not.
Losing you here.
No. The idea behind everything is we're going to get some feedback here for 1 second here.
because we're trying to do a bunch of things here at once and trying to fix my microphone, so I do apologize. So give me 2 seconds. So amateur tonight, and I apologize. But never drop your microphone. What a pain in the ass.
Important. Well, okay, go ahead about that, because then I want to get into the orbs. But I hope, ask Bill if that answers his question.
Mm-hmm. I think it does. I think it does. I mean, we're on a delay here in regards to questions. So, I mean, it is a little bit, I think it does answer his question. I think it does, get to it. I mean, telepathy is something that absolutely kind of made me go a little bit, weird, because that whole concept of being able to talk through minds still kind of trips me out. It trips me out.
Tell me about it. I don't know what you mean exactly.
Well, just in regards to, any type of telepathic communication where you can, talk to your animals, talk to other people without moving your mouth.
Yes.
Yeah. That totally trips me out. Trips me out.
Well, see, one of the things I've done, besides being an explorer and writing this book and being a gemologist, is I have over 20 years of hands-on healing. Over 6,000 hours of touching people in the last 20 years. So I'll just give you an example how that works. All right, so you're in a room, you're doing body work, massage, and I do have my crystals around, and this person's on the table, and I say, I'm from Northern California, and they look at me and go, that's exactly what I was about to ask you. So those kind of things happen too. So there is that, I know exactly, it is trippy, but it happens all the time for me. In fact, I'm sure it happens to a lot of people. We're really sensitive, and so sensitive, and to be in these environments with all these people, you can just feel it. You can almost feel the telepathy happening between everybody, can't you?
I totally think you can. Can you hear me okay, by the way? Okay, she cannot hear me. For some reason, it is not popping up on Skype here. I'm going to assume you couldn't hear me.
I
didn't hear a word.
Oh, weird. Okay, so we got to figure this out.
Because we are pretty darn close to getting this whole thing sorted out. We just got to figure out why you're not hearing us now.
I can hear you now.
Yes, because I'm still got my cell phone here. I had to turn off my microphone. Weird. We'll figure it out during the break. We'll figure it out then. But Leela, when it comes to the crystals and the gemstones that you are used to being around, the powers that many of these gems have brought forward, what do they feel like to you? What do they feel like when you say walk into a cave and it's filled with selenite, or it's filled with amethyst, or it's filled with absolutely anything?
How does it feel to me? Well, my only true experience of being hit by a massive amount of crystal was obviously a very rare experience of being in those selenite crystal caves. And I felt like it was a divine surge of light, that it created an awakening for me that I couldn't explain, but put this deep seed of burning desire to awaken and to pursue knowledge. And I think that's exactly what selenite's about. I think selenite has the ability to bring in, again, the telepathic, which means the way it's said by Katrina Raphael is that it works with the soul star. So we have chakras, because this has been told to us in teachings that are by the Vedas, in the Vedas and the Mahabharatas 5,000 years ago, if not longer, that we have these chakras inside our bodies and outside our bodies, spinning wheels of light. And there is something called the soul star chakra that sits and resides about 36 inches above the crown of the head. And it's called the stellar gateway. And so as you think of it as a lotus petal chakra, it allows for cosmic information to be downloaded, if you want, if you will, into the body. So I can't really speak for other crystals like that. It's just not my expertise. Even though I'm a gemologist, that was an important piece to have so that I could present my science and my research on these selenite crystals. And then the healing part is just a whole nother story about that. Just moving energy and frequency. But tell me.
I got a question.
Yeah.
I got a question from Bob here quickly in regards to the gems that you were talking about. And maybe you can answer this, maybe you cannot. He is asking, do you know of the Lemurian headband that Colonel Billy Fay Woodard used? And what are your thoughts? The headband apparently uses crystal and gold or silver coin. It's supposed to promote ESP. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not. I'd love to know more. I don't know about it. The Lemurian headband, the headband by Billy who?
Billy Fay Woodard. Colonel Billy Fay Woodard.
Looking it up. How long ago was this guy alive? Or is it something recent?
Oh, I'll have to look into that. I really will.
Okay. Hollow Earth. Okay, retired Colonel Bill and twin sister Zuria were born in our Hollow Earth and delivered to Outer Earth on September 18th, 1951. Well, okay, I'll take a look at it. I don't know anything about it. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking at his headband right now. Well, we know from the Mayans and they all wore these headdresses, but they're not headdresses like for something decorative. They used it because they received frequencies through the metals on their head. So that makes sense to me.
How does one then find out what crystals are good for them? If they could use them to clear signals for themselves to pick up messages.
Well, I would recommend, and many people have now, because I've been teaching about it for 17 years. Selenite is an amazing crystal to clear your energy in your room and in your own personal energy field. It doesn't attract a program. You know, like quartz crystals, we use them in computers because they're piezoelectric. They put out a pulse. So we use those because they hold programs. But selenite crystal doesn't hold a program at all. It just continues to just perpetuate this energy. It just flows. It's always flowing. It's just water. It's crystallized water, minerals and water. It's not like quartz that's in pegmatites with heat and pressure, or a diamond that comes from carbon, under tremendous pressure of the earth and heat from, kimberlite pipes of lava tubes. So it's a whole different configuration of molecules. So again, I'm talking to you about this is where my attention and focus has been, is working in this field of crystals with laying them on the body and having people have their own experiences about them. Would you like me to tell you about that and how crystals are used in that kind of application?
Yeah, we have about 2 minutes before we got to go to break.
Well, okay, maybe we save that. I'd like you to share with me too about the orbs that you've seen, because I think your story is pretty fascinating. And I would like to know if you have ever seen any crystals on the ships or any of the abductions or paranormal things that have happened to you, Dave.
See, the abductions that I have had, I only remember the beings. I don't remember being on ship. I don't remember being or having any types of crystals or anything around. I mean, orbs have always just kind of been around everywhere, in the last few years. And it's kind of been, a little bit strange, where all of a sudden you're walking through, you're sitting in meditation and all of a sudden you see a golf ball size orb, come by a doorway, stop in the middle of the doorway, and then hang a 90-degree turn and come back to you.
Wow.
I mean, that's what's strange. Things like that.
Never had anything like that happen to me. I've seen orbs, but I've never had anything like that. Do you think these are like little miniatures? They appear miniature, but they're really not?
Oh, I don't know what the hell they are. That's the problem. If I knew what they were, I would definitely tell you. I would definitely tell you. So, I mean, I don't know what the hell they are. Are they just energy balls? Are they something that
I think they're conscious.
Has more product? I really don't know.
Interesting.
Right? So, on that note, I'm going to get you to hold on because I am going to take our first break of the night and our only break with you, Leela. So please hold on. And we are talking with Leela Hutchison tonight on Spaced Out Radio. TheCrystalGiants.com is her website. Check it on out. And once again, I want to apologize to Leela and to all of you in the audience because I kind of screwed up and broke my microphone. We're trying to get things back on track here. So we're going to do that during the break. So please bear with us. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at SpacedOutRadio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spaceoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spaceoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Think we got the microphone snafu figured out, which is always good. Tomorrow night on the program, we have John Tenney coming back. Yes, the resident paranormal weirdo of Spaced Out Radio is back. as he will talk all about his weird and strange experiences as he comes on every 2 months, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network, including the Fringe.fm, and you can watch us on YouTube. YouTube.com/Spaced Out Radio. That's where we store our archives. As you can listen to this one about 10 minutes after we're done. It'll be on our YouTube channel. Just do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Bartolatry. Or is it Bardolatry? Bardolatry sounds more fun. I'm going to go with Bardolatry. Bardolatry is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night, right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, we got a plethora of features for you. You could rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the Encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Leela Hutchison is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're getting into crystals, how they affect us on a daily basis. Do they affect consciousness? Where are we going with this? Only time will tell. Her website, thecrystalgiants.com. Leela, thank you so much. I apologize to you publicly now for the snafus and the microphone and trying to get that fixed in hour number 1. I'm not going to lie, it kind of rattled me, so I do apologize to you.
Mm-hmm. No problem, Dave. Sounds like you recovered greatly.
I think we're doing all right. I
do too.
I gotta ask you though, because during the break we were talking about crystals and consciousness, and you brought up a very good story that at UFOCon I watched a video or a documentary on David Adair when he had crawled up on top of this, what he says was a UFO engine. When he looked inside, he saw crystals, and that he believed that everything, when it comes to these ET craft, was based on consciousness, and the crystals giving the energy to help fly them. Do you believe that story, and do you believe that crystals have the power to enhance consciousness?
Yes, I do. The year before, at that same conference, David Adair was there sharing that story once before. Instead of being on a film, he was there live. And I had the opportunity to pull him by the side and ask him, I said, were there any crystals on board when you were at Area 51? And he said that indeed there were. And, this also goes along with somebody that you know quite well, I believe, is Grant Cameron, right?
Yeah, love me some Grant Cameron.
Yeah, well, Grant came by my booth, if you want to call it, my table, and purchased my book from me. And I said, now, why are you interested in this? And I didn't realize that he's really moving in the direction of what crystals have to do with ETs and consciousness as well. I don't know where he's going with his research at this point, but obviously, there are a few people that are understanding that maybe teleportation and telepathic abilities, that this is how, and we've heard stories of abductees. I did at the International UFO Congress in Scottsdale. I was there for a week listening to incredible stories, how, some of these journeys were taken by just their consciousness and having a human try to drive one of these crafts, one of these Zeta Reticuli craft, by using their minds. And so I believe that this is kind of like the really missing piece, maybe with that they're working on that we don't know about with To the Stars Academy, maybe in some of these other organizations, that this is the real linchpin to it all, is them tapping into, how do these ETs use their technology, their own psychic abilities, if you want to call it, or their brain abilities to move their craft and perform all of these different functions. So yeah, I do.
How do you think we are tapping into the consciousness of everything? Because for so many people out there, there is a big struggle. And I understand where you're going with that, because Grant Cameron, the one thing that he has gone over, and in about the last year, he's really switched his tone, whereas maybe Disclosure is more about the people and the stories that have been happening over time, rather than the stories that we see right now or in the past where it's all about the government and disclosure. And one of those topics, as Grant has done his research, has been, and the people he has talked to, the word consciousness continues to come up. So a lot of these people, whether it's To the Stars or Robert Bigelow or whomever it could be, it seems like they are trying to hide the fact that consciousness is really a key cog in everything that has to do with some sort of ET contact.
Yeah, I know. It's fascinating. It's just really fascinating. Yeah, I think it's being suppressed as well. In what experience I have in that? I don't. I mean, it's just, I don't play in those fields. But I do believe that this is why I think people who have extra perception, ESP, if you want to call it that, perception. How do you say that? What is it called? Perception. Help me out here, Dave. What am I trying to say here? The abilities, psychic abilities. I mean,
ESP?
These are the people. Yeah, but what does ESP stand for?
Extra sensory perception.
Yeah, that's it. That this is probably the thing that's being pursued and with abductees or any of these. If you hear about children that have these talents, they get profiled and they get singled out and they get tested. So there's always been this pursuit, like either whether it's been the military or others. Like they used to say the best trackers were the Irish, and that were the soldiers that were part Irish and part Cherokee. How about that? So there had been, these were the guys that became the Green Berets. I've met them. I've met a few of them. And those kind of genetics were highly valued because in that Irish blood and the Cherokee were the ability, the excellent ability to track intuitionally things that maybe other humans couldn't do. So maybe this is absolutely this piece between ETs and consciousness and hybrids, maybe that's all the interest in the hybrids too.
Do you think, though, that these crystals that are apparently flying these ships, do you think that they are maybe found here on Earth?
No, I don't think they're found here on Earth. I think Earth has similar. And I do think resources from Earth have been taken by ETs. Definitely. Let's jump into that for a minute. One of the things I've been doing in the last couple of years is I've invited and shared my information with a man named Noe Torres from Texas and Ruben Uriarte, who is the director of Northern California MUFON. Did you meet them at all, Dave, in your travels?
No, I have not. When I was down in San Francisco, that was really the furthest I had traveled,
Oh.
And, well, actually, that's a lie. The year before, I went to speak at a Paracon in Massachusetts, but I had more fingers than people there, so it was...
I know how that goes.
Yeah.
I know how it goes.
Yeah, travel 3,500 miles for that. I'm still a little sensitive over that one. But, as far as UFO conferences, Lorien's back in March was the first one I had been to.
Oh, well, we were so happy to have you there. And if, I just want to encourage all your listeners, they can buy the DVDs from the, about that, right, with UFO Con. Maybe you can share that. Your own presentation is in there, and they can buy it for cheap, like $5 or $10, and get all of the speakers. Do you know about that?
Yes, if you go to UFO or caufocon.com, that's caufocon.com, you can click on 2018 speakers and you can actually purchase the entire conference or just select speakers on that, like Dave Scott.
Yeah, like Dave Scott, we were so happy to have you there. I think Lorian is an exceptional producer because she brings people like you in. What you shared with us was jaw-dropping. It was completely fascinating. In fact, I have to say, out of all the speakers that I saw, and I'm not trying to just flatter you, I'm just saying you've got a really interesting story, like phenomenal. And more people need to hear it because we just don't get that kind of a witness, that kind of an experiencer that comes forth with such unbelievable details of how your whole journey, how it began for you. Because it started with your mother. And I thought that was really interesting how that began for you. And then how you started to go through like almost a shamanic journey of more intense experiences as you went along. And my question was, did this depression that you have, did that happen as a result of all those experiences?
You know what? My depression, my anxiety I always had, especially around death. But my depression really started kicking in. I didn't notice that until 2007, so about 4 years before my experiences started.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But depression also runs on my father's side of the family, so it is something that is a family trait. You know, you just kind of have to, bubble it up and, fight it.
I understand.
There is no point. There is no point. You got to fight it. Fight the bastard. Drop the gloves and fight the bastard.
You do. I know. I think it runs in a lot of families. It's not been easy. It's not easy for any of us living on this planet right now, I don't think. If it is, you're living in some kind of bubble, and even that is a precarious situation. But I wanted to get into a little more about some of this paranormal stuff because I know you've experienced it too. And I want to tell you, when I rejoined my friendship with Ruben Uriarte, Ruben and Noe had started to document crash cases, UFO crashes on the Mexico-Texas border, New Mexico. So it was really, really fascinating. And we started to weave our research together because apparently a lot of paranormal activity has happened in that Chihuahuan desert. And, I've got some ideas of why, but in that Chihuahuan desert is first what I'm going to call ground zero. And there's a whole bunch of other things that other people would say is ground zero. But for me, the most significant would be the world's largest planetary crystals were found, discovered, and grown in northern Mexico in the state of Chihuahua. Now, what's around there? Well, a very interesting area is called the Zone of Silence. And it's just a little southeast of Nica, Chihuahua, where these crystals were found. And this area has had a lot of strange things happen. One of them is, I think in 1970s, was the Allende. No, that was probably 60s. I'm thinking of the Athena rocket. The Allende meteorite, Dave, was found in the Zone of Silence. And the reason it's called the Zone of Silence in this area was because no TV signals, radio signals, absolutely no communication could get in this zone whatsoever. And it's almost like a cloud. It kind of moves in this area. It never really leaves, but it just can. It's amorphous. It just kind of moves around. And nobody can understand why there are absolutely zero signals, and that the oldest meteor that held the building blocks of the universe were found in these chondrites inside this meteor that fell in the zone of silence. So it's the oldest meteorite ever found, and it contains the building blocks of the entire universe. So fascinating. That's number one. In the 70s, out of Green River, Utah, the trajectory was for a missile called the Athena rocket that was to land at White Sands Missile Range. And it was carrying a load of cobalt, all right, so that to really help spread radiation for an atomic bomb. And so this exploratory missile, the Athena rocket, fell in the zone of silence. It was supposed to, like I said, it was supposed to land in White Sands, but went into a trajectory down into Mexico and then plummeted into the zone of silence. Werner von Braun, they had to build a road into this particular area and clean up all of the debris of the radioactive material from that rocket. So then later, there's been a lot of sightings of these tall, ghost-like, and alien creatures. I can't say they're really creatures. They look human, but they don't speak, and they've been witnessed in this zone of silence where people have come across these tall men and women. So that's another thing. So what's there? What's drawing this kind of thing, these kind of paranormal situations? And then the UFO crashes, which wasn't too far from the zone of silence in Coahuila. And there's 3 or 4 of these very interesting crash sites of UFOs. What is in this desert that's drawing this kind of activity? Have you ever even tracked any of this or heard of any of this?
I have heard of it. I've never been very profound in actually looking into it because, you know, it seems so far-fetched from what I have gone through personally, if that makes sense. And I know and I'm sure there's a lot of experiencers out there like myself, Leela, who have, you know, we have a hard enough time trying to figure out what's happening in our own little world rather than going off into these large research categories. I don't mean that to sound insulting. Please don't take it that way.
No, not at all.
But
if you're not tracking it, you're not tracking it. I understand.
Yeah.
I don't really know what's going on in Canada either, you know, but Mexico has been, because of these crystals, there's some mystery to all this paranormal activity that's been happening in this area. And I don't know exactly what it is. It could be the water, and it could be a huge amount also of magnetite, which is found in the land. And it could be drawing that, like I said, the meteorites or the rocket to this area. And it might have something to do with the growth of these crystals too. And it also could be, what if those crystals were a beacon? What if they were like a sound that we couldn't hear or some kind of light we couldn't see, even though it's deep in the earth, that was bringing maybe extraterrestrial activity to the area? Because there's been a lot, and more than I can really document. Those are just Ruben, and it's called Mexico's Roswell. I want to recommend the book.
Yes.
It's an incredible book by Ruben Uriarte and Noe Torres, Torres. It's an incredible book, and there's several other crash sites along the Mexican-U.S. border. So what is drawing this activity to the area? And, you know, these are always my questions. I grew up in El Paso, near Roswell, New Mexico, and White Sands Missile Range. So, you know, I was there in the 50s. It wasn't long after the U.S. The Roswell crashes, the 2 that happened there in 47. So I'm not sure what's going on in this particular area. Was it because of the atomic bomb in 45? Did that rip a hole in some kind of, a wormhole?
Could these crystals or these crystal mines that you have been in, could they be projecting some sort of signal into space, almost like a beacon?
Well, that's what I believe. I think they're transmitters and receivers, because if you look at it, if you just, I just recommend for your listeners and yourself, Dave, just Google or use your search engine to look into selenite crystals, and you'll see. And then you can also go to the Crystal Caves of Mexico, not only on my website, but you can also find all kinds of images. National Geographic did 2 documentaries on these crystals in 2008 and 2010. Oh, there's great interest in these things. Great interest. And the reason being is they were looking for how does life survive in hostile environments such as Mars? Okay. So that's another piece I'll bring in about some of the interesting paranormal stuff. Last year in 2017, I met with Dr. Penelope Boston. She's the director of NASA's astrobiology department. She has got about 650 scientists that work under her that she manages across the United States. And these astrobiologists are looking for life in extreme environments. And so, of course, there was great interest in these giant crystals because it's one of the most hostile working environments in the world. And what they found last year in her paper that she submitted to the Advancement of Sciences, Astrobiology Sciences in Boston, in Boston, Massachusetts last year on February 17th of 2017, was that they took samples of water that were inside these crystals, Dave, that are now 550,000 years old. And what they found astonished them. They found microbes that were living and functioning inside these crystals that were alien-like, which means that in their massive database of all these microbes, because they're cataloging everything, they had never found any microbes on Earth that existed like the ones that were found inside the selenite crystals. Wow.
Unbelievable.
All right?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Alien-like. They didn't have anything in their database. And believe me, they're keeping a database because when they go to Mars, that's what Mars rover is all about. They're matching in a database what they're finding, because microbes are very intelligent. They want to survive, and the way they survive is you can't do that in an ionized, radiated environment on the atmosphere. So microbes will drop down into the cracks in the earth, or not our, I say earth, but of soil, because it could be on another planet like Mars. And there they'll go as deep as they can to exist, because if they stay on the surface, they'll be radiated. So there's a lot of interest in the intelligence in microbes. And by the way, we have a ton of microbes in our gut. So we got more microbes than we do blood cells in our body, 10 to 1, I believe.
Has there ever been any scientific testing on if there's any type of signal or radiation being given off these crystals, or any type of magnetics, any type of science regarding these, that they may be causing a signal?
Well, I think so. I've been tracking a bunch of stuff on this. Last year also they found radio burst signals that were coming from a galaxy that was 300 billion light years away. Did you hear about that by any chance? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you start to wonder about the picking up these signals. I think selenite, now this is where I didn't read up on this again tonight, but everything has a cycle, a frequency, right? Hertzian cycles, so many cycles per second. And I know that selenite is almost in the radio signal range. Okay, so when you think about angstroms of light and sound frequency, so it's like, when you have the color spectrum, you have different Hertzian cycles, right? Like 660 cycles per second, and that could be the color orange. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So as you move up the scale, then you go into X-rays and gamma rays and radio waves. And I believe the research I did with this on the selenite crystals has almost a 2.5 million cycles per second, which means it actually is, its frequency is in the radio signal range. Is that very interesting? Okay, so these are some of the things I've been looking at, and again, I think of selenite crystals as receptors and transmitters of information, and then you think of the quartz crystals in the earth as the amplifiers, right? They amplify, they hold programs, and they amplify information. So I think that's how selenite and quartz crystals work together. And I do believe they are transmitting radio or some kind of signals. And it could be why it has brought some of the paranormal activity to this Chihuahuan desert. And
John,
believe me, if
go ahead, please. Well, I was going to get.
Go ahead.
All right,
Go
you
ahead.
go first. You go first. You're the guest here.
Well, I was just going to say there's been, I was thinking about the giants, so that'll be my next thing I'll talk about. No, so please go ahead.
All right, John has a question in our Spreaker chat room. He is asking, what in your opinion is the primary use for selenite?
To clear energy out of the room. Absolutely. It keeps a positive energy, perpetually moves energy, and it's like it's perpetual white light. So it needs no clearing. The selenite crystal never needs to be cleared. It doesn't hold a program where I believe all other crystals, I should say all, most crystals do hold programs. That means when somebody holds it and they have a negative thought, they can embed that thought into the crystal. And so unless you can continually cleanse and clear your crystals by putting them in water, spring water and salt, or putting them out in the moonlight, like tonight is a full moon, or in sunlight, it's the way to help freshen and clean those crystals. But selenite never has it. So the purpose for me, the way I use it is in my environment. I keep selenite crystal to keep a positive vibration in my environment. And then when I meditate, I hold it because it has the ability, as your first guy who was on tonight, Bill or Bob, it has, I believe, the ability to open up our own telepathic talents and gifts, and to receive messages.
Incredible. Gail would like to know, do you believe that any of this ties into the crystal skulls, and have you ever studied them?
Wow. Well, that's a really loaded subject for me, Gail. I've made it. I don't play with the crystal skulls, and the reason being is I think it's going to go back to what you were talking about. I don't want to be jaded, but this is where I believe a lot of phony skulls have been created. They're machine created, and people think they're really special, and I'm not sure they're special. They've also tried to make them very old, but it's very difficult to authenticate because you're dealing with material. Quartz crystal is millions and millions of years old it takes to create it. And then you have maybe a machine that cuts it. So it's hard to really authenticate if it's a true crystal skull. There's only been a couple, and that is Max the Crystal Skull, that has been authenticated to be a question. It's an unknown. It is of 5 different matrices of quartz crystal that comprise the skull. And there's no machine that could have ever done that, because if it did, it would have blown to smithereens just from the pressure of the machine cutting the crystal around it. So the other one is Shana Ra. And these are the only 2 crystal skulls that really have been recognized to be possibly true, authenticated, either human or hybrid skulls. But then there's the Mitchell Hedges skull as well. So that would be 3 altogether. But there's many, many people that claim that they have authentic crystal skulls, and I just don't buy it. And I don't work with crystal skulls. It's just not the kind of energy I really want to take my time into. Mine is really working with selenite. You can't really cut a skull out of selenite. It's not hard enough.
Do you believe then that the energy produced by not only selenite, but there's obviously other crystals, there's obviously other gems and irons and ores in that border between America and Mexico, where a lot of these sightings and crashes have happened. Do you believe that it takes just the one crystal like selenite to create that signal because there's such a plethora of the crystal there? Or do you believe that it is a combination of crystals and everything that could be putting out that energy beam that is radiating into the universe?
That's a really good question. I think it's a combination of magnetite that's underneath. It's just loaded in the zone of silence. And it's a massive aquifer. Dave, at one time, this was a massive inlet sea. And where did all the water go? Well, obviously, it went underground. So now you have a massive aquifer. And I think, just like in the San Luis Valley near Crestone, they have a lot of ET activity in Colorado, in this area, where some of the highest peaks in the United States are there at Crestone, Colorado. There's a lot of paranormal stuff that goes on there. And they have the National Sand Dune Park, or Sand Dunes National Park, something like that, that's there as well, that they think there's an underground base in Crestone Sand Dunes. They don't even know how those sand dunes got there. It doesn't even make any sense. They really don't know. They've covered it up. But I think in the Mexican desert, I think it's a couple of things. You've got metals. You've got the most prolific mine in Mexico. It's lead, zinc, and silver. It puts out more silver than any other mine has in Mexico, and Mexico is known for their resources. So you've got metals, you've got magnetite, you've got a massive aquifer underground, and you've got these crystals. And I think that combination of those things is what's bringing the UFO activity in this area. And I wish I was really on the UFO MUFON Mexico, Chihuahua, Mexico, the Coconut Wireless with those guys, because if I could understand Spanish that good, I'd be able to maybe track with them, because they have a tremendous amount of sightings of different things. Their stuff is really off the charts, just off the charts. And my friend Ruben, who is a Latino man, and he's also, because he's a director of MUFON, he's in touch with a lot of these investigators in Mexico and has been able to come out with some pretty interesting reports of some of these sightings in this area.
The sightings that people are having in that area, when they have true ET contact, are they having it from one particular species, or is it numerous species that are coming down?
Well, I couldn't say for sure of what all of those are, but I think the majority, and I was going to ask you this yourself, I think what you're getting the most of the reports are the grays. It's the contactees with the grays, the Zeta Reticuli, which was going to be a question I wanted to ask you, Dave. In your contact experience, do you know if you met the grays were you taken or interfaced with them? I think you said you don't remember being on the ships. Is that right?
Well, I remember being on the ship. I don't remember anything else besides the one operating room. Let's see. I have seen 1, 2, 3, 4 different species of gray.
I'm curious to know if you have ever seen the grays that have the blue eyes.
That I have not. I've seen the short guys that kind of look like a gray cross with E.T.'s face. I've seen this little gray who's the hunchback with the long neck and the head kind of protrudes away from the chest. I've seen the tall grays, and I was surrounded by about 5 of them. And I remember punching one.
Well, how tall are they? Or were they the 6 foot or the 5 foot?
They were around my height, so I'm 5 foot, just under 5'9", so they were eye level with me.
Wow.
And then there's Carl. Carl was at my window. I don't know how tall he was. I just know that I just remember seeing his head, his massive head, standing at the window. 7 feet away from me.
Okay, I had an experience like that when I was a little girl, too. I had a tall gray and a short gray in the window of my home in El Paso, Texas. And that's all I remember. But they were grays. Definitely. So I think the majority of abductions that are happening on this planet are from the grays and in that area. But because I haven't talked to any contactees in Mexico with my research and in the past few years, and really before that I wasn't really tracking the contactees. It wasn't until I started to interact with and collaborate with Ruben Uriarte did I start to become aware of the UFO crash sites on the Mexican-U.S. border. Had no idea.
It would be interesting to see if there is other species even behind those grays. If we take the grays as being scientists and being scientists for hire or whatever people want to call them, it'd be curious to see if there are other species hiding behind them. Whether it's the humanoids, whether it's reptilians, whether it's the mantids, whatever they may be. Hell, crab people. I don't know.
I believe it. No, I believe it. I think they're biological robots, the majority of them. I think they take orders from, some kind of a hierarchical order. Definitely. That's all they're here. I think they're here. I think the biological robots are basically here to take samples. However, I think with International UFO Congress, there was a woman from Turkey saying the Greys came and she had breast cancer and they healed her of her breast cancer. They used lasers with their fingers on her breast and cured her. So I don't know. I never think of them as wanting to really heal us as much as I think of them wanting to take samples of our tissue.
See, my guy Carl, I don't fear him.
Huh.
I don't fear him at all. And I believe that, much like there's different species of people, I believe there's different species of the gray as well that end up really, I think some are AI. I really do. But others, I do believe there is a real life trait to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. Interesting. So, does Carl give you information?
No, he's only been in my life twice. The first time at the window, and then 2.5 years later, or 3, 2.5 years later, his energy was back. I knew he was in my yard with 2 of his friends.
Didn't you say in your wonderful talk that that you had gone with your friend, this woman with the dogs, that somehow the dogs were taken care of, but you went into the forest and you saw these really tall ETs?
Yes, that was with Samantha Mowat. That was April 15th, 2014.
Were they, how tall were they? That was the one question.
Oh, this guy was 10 to 12 feet tall, maybe taller.
Just one guy?
I didn't see the other guy. I was so fixated on this one. Samantha Mowat was telepathically communicating with the other one. I did not see the other guy.
Okay.
And the other one, and it was funny because Samantha and I, we didn't realize this incident happened in April, and it wasn't until late August, early September that we figured out we were talking about two different beings. She saw two. But the one that she was telepathically communicating about or with when we had our experience, she was actually talking to a tanned colored gray, if that makes sense. Gray head, like the head of a gray, body of a gray, but instead of being gray, they were tan colored. And this guy was probably 6 feet tall.
And how tall? And yours was 12, though, right?
Yeah, the one beside him was about 10 to 12 feet tall.
Oh, man. What do we know? We even scope and size. Who knows what's going on?
Oh, for sure. It was completely strange. Right? And I couldn't get my eyes off that guy. That's why I often explain it, it's like a horror movie where you see the person coming from, hundreds of feet away, and yet you're stuck there. You can't move.
Yeah.
You're too much. Your body just can't comprehend. In horror movies, it's all about fear. But the way, like I said in my speech that you heard, when your eyes see something that your mind cannot comprehend, it really throws you for a loop. It really does.
Yeah, the paralysis sets in. I see what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
It's very, very strange. I don't recommend it for anybody.
Why do you think that you were contacted that day? You have any idea?
Well, 5 days previous, I had seen a ship land, and they, whoever they are, had called me outside to communicate with them. So that's what happened there. So I had really no choice but to, when I met Samantha, because at that point, when I met Samantha Mowat, I had only known her about 20-30 minutes when we had that experience.
Yeah, that's right. You guys went outside in the backyard. That's right. And then you walked into the forest.
Yes.
Very strange.
Yeah. Never walk into the forest with Samantha Mowat. You will see aliens.
Okay. You're on. I wanted to share with you my recollection as a child.
Please do.
As a living in El Paso, near Fort Bliss, Texas, which is the Army base, and then White Sands Missile Range, and then you have, literally, we lived. How long? We lived maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours from Roswell. So, and then all that area, and just to think that the atomic bomb, from where that would exploded, again, was maybe an hour and a half away from El Paso. God only knows what really had been going on in that desert. And El Paso is only 250 miles away from where the giant crystals are, down in Mexico. So as a kid, I'll never forget. And then you know how it goes as a child. You just don't remember if it's a dream anymore, or if you just made it up, or a nightmare what this was, but I remember being in a room with my sister. We shared a bedroom together, and we had twin beds. And she was asleep in one bed, and I remember getting up because I saw this very, very bright light that came in on the east side of the house and our window. And I wanted to know what that light was, and I went to the window and I saw these two grays, and that's all I remember. And the one was tall and one was small. That was it. So I've always wondered if I've done a regression once, but it didn't come up. I've always wondered whether or not if I was taken.
I think you were. They just don't come and say hello at the window. Well, Carl did. That still pisses me off. He owes me.
Oh my goodness.
He owes me, Leela. He owes me. I'm still a little upset about that. I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
At some point you definitely have to have that situation happen where you get payback. You know what I'm saying? Some of us need payback. I just want to go for a ride. Straight out go for a ride. Don't you? Wouldn't you? If you had the opportunity, Leela, and we only got about 5 minutes left with you, but if you had the opportunity to go for a ride consciously, like you're wide awake, like you are awake right now with us on the air, wouldn't you take it?
Oh yeah. Oh, I'd love to. I'd like to be like the woman at the UFO Congress in Scottsdale who told of her experiences where she literally was seated in one of these scout ships and was driving the craft with her mind. And she didn't really know how to do it. I said, of course you know how to do it. Yeah, I'd love it. I think it'd be fascinating. Or how about where you just put your fingers in some kind of, like plasma or something that it just reads your DNA, and that's your key to to turn the ignition on, and there's that mind meld right there with some kind of a plasma type tabular crystal, some kind of a thing that is actually a living being that is harnessing your energy with it and melding that. I think that'd be really cool.
I think it'd be really cool too. Really cool.
That's why David Adair's work, right? That's why I'm fascinated that he went in there and he said there's these crystal tiles. That's the word. It's the tiles that he saw.
And he felt like it was communicating with him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew there'd be crystals. That's why I asked him 2 years ago. I said, did you see crystals on it? And also, you saw the configuration of the engine. Had you ever seen anything like that before? What his mock-up was?
Nothing like that.
It was unbelievable.
Oh, we only got about 3 minutes left with you. Okay. And this show has absolutely flown by.
It has.
It has. It has totally flown by. And I would love for you to take a couple of minutes, explain your book, and really, tell us where people can get it as well.
All right. So, Journey into the Giant Selenite Crystal Caves of Mexico. It's called Edition 2, now with rare color photographs. I have the first original images that were taken in the Crystal Caves before National Geographic came 8 years later, or in 2010 as well. So these first images were actually presented to the Smithsonian Institute this year in Tucson in February. I had the great privilege of bringing it full circle with the Smithsonian, since they were the ones that had told the world that these were probably the largest crystals ever found. And you can find the book on Amazon.com, and I just had it translated into Spanish, and it was a dream of mine come true to have this wonderful woman from Mexico really get the feel of my journey, which is basically, it's a number of stories that got me into the Crystal Caves, and then a full explanation of everything that happened in there, what I saw, what I felt and experienced. So you can find that on Amazon, Dave.
That sounds so much fun. How much is the book going for right now?
I think there's different prices on it, but it runs between $23.99 and $27.99 with the rare colored images in there. And so, I kind of laugh about it. It's someday, maybe not in my lifetime, but it would be a collector's edition because there's nothing before it. And now that the Crystal Caves are flooded, no one will ever be able to go back in there again until they decide to deflood, dewater the mines.
Quite the journey.
Yeah.
What a very intriguing story. Leela, I want to say thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio. Once again, I apologize for that first hour and the technical snafus that we were having, but you're a trooper. You really are. I owe you one.
You don't owe me anything.
No,
I hope to see you at
Yeah.
I'm headed to Contact in the Desert. I'm not a speaker this year. I hope I get to be one next year on the mysteries of the Chihuahuan Desert and bring in all of this fascinating information. But I will be at the Contact in the Desert. I'm sure I'll see Grant Cameron and a few other your buddies down there.
Yeah, say hello to everybody there for us, because we love them all. And, I hope to get down there one day for that, too. I really do.
I hope you will. Thank you.
Leela, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio. When we come back in hour number 3, we're going to be joined by Chris George Zuger from the Den of Lore show. We're going to talk about truth in the paranormal. We'll get to it right after this. Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We are lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, the Paranormal Weirdo will be back. It'll be John Tenney, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome in everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network as well. If you are listening on the Fringe FM, happy evening to you. Hope you're having a great night with us. And you can also check us out on periscope.tv every Monday through Friday night. I got bad hair tonight. I don't even know why I'm looking. Bad hair tonight. It's terrible. But nonetheless, our YouTube channel is youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Do us a favor, hit the subscribe button. That's where we store all of our archives. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Bardolatry. Bardolatry is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, our website, spacedoutradio.com, has a plethora of features for you. Rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers Contact TV, and so much more. Hour number 3, we're going to talk about truth. And one of the loudest speakers in regards to truth is Chris George Zuger from the Den of Lore YouTube channel. Chris is gaining a lot of quick popularity. You may have heard him just a couple of nights ago on our SOR Paranormal Roundtable where he came in for the final 2 hours. We're glad to have him with us, but before we bring him on, I want to apologize to all of you out there. Because, you know, each and every night I try and bring my best to you guys. And with dropping my microphone onto a cement floor, and as you know, everything is kind of in shambles here at SOR headquarters as we are building the new studio. And I dropped my microphone onto a cement floor, and Bazooka Joe came over and fixed it. And I'm very, very appreciative of him doing that. But when things don't go well and you're having technical problems, it really throws you off your game. And so I want to apologize to each and every one of you listeners out there, and I know there's a ton of you, for not getting my best tonight because I was just a little rattled, and I apologized to Leela right before I hung up with her during the break, and I just feel bad. I feel horrible about that because you guys deserve my best each and every night no matter what happens, and I haven't been able to give you my best tonight. And so I apologize to all of you for that. But nonetheless, the show has to go on. We're not one of those shows that is going to cancel because we stubbed a toe or we dropped a microphone or anything like that. Chris from the Den of Lore, welcome to Spaced Out Radio again.
Thank you very much yet again for inviting me into this very lovely community of yours for the evening.
You know what? I appreciate you stepping on in here because I've actually wanted to talk to you about this for a long time, and I'm actually looking at my schedule. I've had a couple of schedule adjustments I've had to make in June, and I do want to bring you on in mid-June, early around the 11th, 12th, to talk to you more in depth about this. But you have been a very, very loud person who I'm going to call a truther. And the reason why I'm going to call you that is because I think the way you are looking for truth is much different than these sycophant people out there who are hiding behind the word truth, behind all of these sometimes shameful conspiracy theories that are out there. So why do you take that stance, Chris, in regards to real truth rather than conspiracy truth?
Integrity, honesty, transparency. These are things that we within the paranormal truth-seeking community are supposed to be about. This is what we're supposed to believe in. And at some part, and I'm not sure at what point between when I first discovered it, way back when I was a youngster, to today, it became more about great-looking graphics, the latest app, or the latest fad that you're offering to individuals, or going to conferences and them becoming Coachella. It is not about finding and discovering what these phenomena are about anymore. And it's about high time that if these things are going to be discussed and they're going to be researched, and we're going to have individuals who will dedicate their entire lives in the search for what that phenomena is, that we should actually discuss what the phenomena is and not just every single wild possible connection to it, and try and come up with a systematic and objective way at getting to the root of what is being presented to us. And with your show, you look at all the subjects from a outside perspective. You're giving the person the opportunity to be able to speak, and you're asking the questions to understand and allow that discussion to be able to foster, which is why I love the show so much. It's a treat to listen to. With a lot of other shows, and that's the best way to be able to put it. And that's usually my line to start with, as I'm trying to be very polite. There are shows with agendas, and there are individuals with agendas who do not understand, or they do understand, that that microphone is power and it requires someone with responsibility to wield it, because it can do anything from sell coffee to topple deep states. So I'm doing it because it's the right thing to, at least I think it's the right thing to do.
So for people who don't know your story, Chris, how did you get into this field and start with your own agenda of trying to bring the truth out?
A couple of ways. From the ancient history side, first learning of the possibility that the Sphinx is much older and from a much earlier civilization than is presented to us in academia. Through the great and late John Anthony West, may he rest in peace. And I searched for that understanding of where we came from through his line of work and through extension through my other heroes, Robert Bauval, Robert Schoch, Graham Hancock, and discovered individuals such as Randall Carlson. With UFOs, well, I'm an experiencer just like you. I've had some very interesting things happen. I've observed some very interesting phenomena fairly up close from the time I was a child up until, sometimes anytime I look up at the sky, except for that one time I actually thought the International Space Station was a UFO. I did the research. I was wrong on that one for that one time. But it's that idea of, are we alone? That is the nature of where we're going as a species, as a civilization, as a people. And having seen things I can't explain, and for my entire life, believing that a certain paradigm is one reality, and then at some point in time realizing, well, I have the wherewithal and the know-how that I could probably make a go at this independent broadcaster thing. Managed to get the gear together, did the entire production, built the website, built the crowd, based it off of some very basic values, which is we are ourselves. This is what we stand for. This is what we believe in. This is what we represent. And those who believe in it can come. Anybody who wants to be able to come in and have a conversation is more than welcome. The only two things that we don't accept is blatant misdirection, blatant abuse, or and as in the, I'm going to paraphrase here in the words of Dr. Robert Schoch, who went on our show once said, not all ideas deserve consideration. And we're going to get to that in a second, I'm no doubt, but discussing ideas that have no basis in reality. Because there's a difference between having a theory and then actually having something that's been researched through various sources, cross-referenced, checked, recorded, and can be posed as a theory. Anybody can make up something, and I could say, well, in the other room is a glowing ball, but I can't see it. I don't know if it's there, and I have no proof, but it's there. There's something to be said about taking things on faith versus tried and true scientific and just scientific, basic, repeatable processes.
I get that. But you just mentioned two of the words that set off almost everybody in the entire paranormal genre: proof and truth. Those are the two words that have so many different meanings, whether it's UFOs, whether it's ghosts, whether it's cryptids like Bigfoot or sea monsters or whatever it could be. And everybody's definition of proof, Chris, especially in this field, is different. how do you go about defining true proof when everybody, including me versus you, has different defining meanings of it?
Because truth doesn't necessarily come from the evidence about the phenomena. It also comes from the evidence leading to the people who are trying to present the phenomena. It is the intent of the message that you are trying to be sent. If somebody says the sky is blue and somebody says the sky is black, and it depends on what time of day it is, both are technically true. But what is the true nature of why it is true? Is because somebody is witnessing something in a certain perspective or from a certain perspective. Maybe somebody is trying to be able to tell you that the sky is blue. There are no clouds in the sky. Why? To be able to tell you that you don't actually have to bring your umbrella, or maybe you shouldn't wear your coat because it's going to be too hot. Or the sky is black. Okay, maybe that there is something in the sky overhead. Maybe there's a volcano that had erupted, or there are storm clouds outside, or maybe it's just nighttime, which apparently you own on this station, which I do love, actually. So why is that person telling it to you? And if you can understand that nature, then you can actually get to the proof. And we, as a community, try and get to that based on a certain set of presuppositions, a certain set of conventions that have been set throughout a very, very long period of time, 30, 40 years or more. And there's a very good chance, I'm going to say at least in my own opinion, I could be wrong, and I'm willing to admit it, that a lot of those suppositions are actually false.
I get that, and I can appreciate that. You know, but there are so many different people, man, in this field that are, and let's focus on UFOs here, all right? Because I think that's where some of the biggest truth or mistruth is coming through right now. You know, there are people out there, scientists included, who have no ties to, let's say, the To the Stars Academy, who think they are doing the greatest job ever in bringing ufology to the forefront. They've got it on the mainstream media. They got the mainstream media talking about it, which agree or disagree with To the Stars. They did a great job with that. They really did. However, there are shows like ours who have been, and yours as well, who have been telling the public and anybody who will listen to, hold your horses. Let's see where this goes. Let's see what the true agenda is behind this. Let's make this decision a month, 2 months, 6 months later. And we see the cracks. We see the stories lines not adding up, whether it's Tom DeLonge, whether it's Luis Elizondo. Yet there are people who are still out there waving that To the Stars flag. So I guess what I'm saying is, when it comes to truth and the battle for truth in this field, is it all perception? Has it become too political, Chris?
No, I think that right now the community or the scene or the industry, if you are somebody who is benefiting considerably financially from it, and it's a revolution. It is an evolution. It is a time of change where you have all of these voices which are giving 1,000 different ideas, and at this point in time, people are recognizing that there is too much noise, and they're getting sick and tired of it, and they want somebody to be able to make sense of what they're being told. Because if somebody is saying, and I think this is an example that I've used when we've had a discussion on this, that if somebody is saying that the president does not have any access whatsoever to UFOs or the UFO phenomena or any knowledge of it, he cannot get read into it. And on the other hand, somebody who at one point or time maybe still or maybe not was a colleague of that individual has stated publicly in multiple interviews that, no, the president is the CEO of the country. He does have access to it. It doesn't make any sense that he would not have access to it, because he would have the exact highest authority of anyone in the country to be able to access it and then declassify it if necessary. So when you have two completely opposing theories like that, which contradict one another completely. Which one's the truth? How is it you can find that out? And therein lies the issue, because most of what's being presented in a lot of this field, it's not necessarily, or at least may not necessarily, be intended to actually find an answer. It's meant to extract dollars from people's pockets. And that's what a lot of people don't necessarily understand. You're an independent broadcaster. You run a small business. You, at the same time, also have a very high degree of journalistic integrity, having been a part of media and public broadcasting for a very long time. So you understand the necessity to ensure that there is objectiveness and a certain distance between the money within the media and the ability to actually report, and the ability for a witness to be able to tell their story the way that they see it. And then how to tell people ethically how to separate the difference between the two. A lot of other shows do not have that integrity, where they will be in business directly with the guests that they are on the show with, to the point where they're introducing them on stage at very large conferences, where they're inviting them on their shows on a constant basis to promote whatever theory that they would like to on air. And then when there's any dissenting opinion, removing all critical analysis or thought of that from any type of commenting or shared chat space. You don't do that on this show unless you're dealing with, like, at least I would assume, with like racist or blatantly abusive or harassing language. But that's kind of the issue that you get out there. And the reason is because if you have dissenting opinion with what you're trying to present, well, hey, if that theory is proven wrong and somebody who is lying gets found out using basic, logic and applied reasoning, well, then, hey, that means that if you're saying this person could be telling the truth and you're trying to hype this big image, this brand up, well, you're all of a sudden your audience is going to diminish. Your advertising revenue is going to drop, and then all of a sudden you're not going to be able to pay your bills, and then all of a sudden you're not going to be able to do the things that you used to do before and live the lifestyle that you had before, and your employers are not going to be able to get paid. That's a reality. That's a reality with you. That's a reality with any other business out there that has advertising, from TV online to movies at the movie theater.
You know what, though? You bring up a good point, though, and I'm going to take this to a whole different angle with you, if you don't mind, is that, there are people out there who are trying to make a living off of this. They are trying their damnedest. I'm one of them. I have no problems doing this. I don't want to go back to my real job when I can do this and have fun every night and get paid for it. But in this community, it seems, Chris, that if you start getting sponsorships, if you start, maybe going a little bit more mainstream, everybody calls you a sellout. You sold out to the corporations. You sold out for the money. You sold out for this. You sold out because, you get a free ice cream cone at Dairy Queen every Friday for it, or whatever it may be, which I think is a load of malarkey, to be absolutely honest. But that's the trouble we have. And yet people, in the same breath, when they're telling people, whether it's people who are, people have come up to me, I hope Dave doesn't sell out. I've seen the comments. It's not about selling out. It's about creating a career. And in the same breath, people will say, well, how come the mainstream doesn't take us more seriously? How come they don't cover it? It's shows like this one, as we're going to try and go terrestrial, and other shows like this that are on terrestrial that are helping to get that message out and helping to get the mainstream go. So there's a catch-22 there that this entire field, or many in this entire field, and even many who are just listeners or viewers of interest in this phenomenon, have trouble swallowing.
Can I give you an example? And am I allowed to, at least on this show, am I allowed to mention any names?
Keep the name, or keep the names out.
Okay. There's a man that I'll call Bob. Some of you may know Bob, some of you may not know Bob. We'll say Bob Smith. And at one point in time, Bob Smith was a broadcasting hero of mine. And there was at one point when people that I knew were friends of Bob who claimed to be an experiencer of some kind or another in some space or in some time somewhere in the solar system. And there was a situation where these individuals had claimed that they had information that some, what they would term, I'm going to use the different term, a syndicate. So a synonym for that, you can think of that one, people, was blocking the information from getting out. And their website was hacked. Now, I worked IT for a very large company. Well, it wasn't a very large company. It was the largest company of its kind in Canada. I ran their IT department in security. It was a fairly important company, so security was very important. I'm also a web developer and have been since I was 15. I could tell from looking at it that their website wasn't hacked. All they did was they threw up either an overlay or had created a page that was just white with nothing on it. And I pointed it out on Twitter. Immediately what happened was that they blocked me, and then they modified the front page. And then I got very mad. And the reason being is that they were using fear to sell somebody on a concept or idea or belief system and get people to believe what they were saying was true by faking it. And that happens regularly in this field, which most people don't necessarily understand. And I became very, very critical of that individual because I had stood up for that individual and individuals for quite some time, because I'd had the same understanding that, well, hey man, it's just they're trying to pay the bills, they're trying to get stuff paid, and then I'm witnessing them actually fake a situation or fake evidence that is supposed to boost their own claim on what they're saying on social media being true. And if you go to my the Den of Lore YouTube page, if you're not a subscriber, the first thing you'll actually see is an open letter that I made in a response to that after I was told by Bob, somebody I considered my hero, to essentially, in not so many words, and there was a certain eloquence about it that I quickly realized was meant to be a shot over the bow warning to shut up and keep my head down. Now, if anybody knows me, whether they listen to the show, whether they know me personally, or have ever listened to a broadcast I've been on here, Zuger don't do what he's told. Zuger does what Zuger wants, unless it's my wife telling me to do something, which then any married man out there understands that it's about compromise and understanding and love, and you just have to make sure that the marriage wins in that case. But with regards to anybody else, the only things that hold me back from achieving anything, doing anything within the bounds of ethics and law is the laws of physics and the police. That's my belief. Which is to say that the standard structures of society that keep us together and keep us going to Mad Max, and the ability to fly. Those are the two things that hold me back. So I said, okay, if this is what I'm basically going to be told, then the mission that I'm going to have is the mission that another one of my heroes and the person who was an influence on my life more than almost any single other individual, John Anthony West, would do in that situation, which is to raise as much heck as humanly possible using logic and facts and expose the situation for what it is, present the facts for what they are, and allow the people to make the example for themselves. Now, the reason for that being, and the reason that I bring up John Anthony West, is that I was told in this very private and very, I'm going to say, curt letter that leaders don't rock the boat. Leaders aren't negative. And by negativity, he meant critical. And by critical, he meant opposing opinion, dissenting opinion, questioning doctrine. And it was at that point that I'd realized that when it came to ufology, paranormal, that there is a large segment of very rational thinking people out there who have experienced something, have seen a phenomena, and want to understand what it is because they've been there firsthand. You're one of those individuals. And then there are other individuals who want to believe. That is faith. That's a cult. That's religion. That's dogma. That isn't objective discovery. That isn't trying to understand something. That's taking what somebody else says to you and then taking it on faith that they're not lying. And I did that. And I realized very quickly that when a lot of money's on the table and you're dealing with an industry and a phenomena that is by itself unexplainable, that the people who have been around for a very long time and who have a lot of influence may want to maybe keep the story going the way that it's been going because it helps their pocketbooks. And I don't think that's right, because there's a lot of people who have had experiences, who may have been victimized, who may have had things happen to them. And essentially their story and the stories of countless others is being used to sell movies and books and speaking engagements. And it makes me sick because it's not right. So I have a lot of time on my hands. I'm a 35-year-old man. I have a lot of time on my hands. A lot of time. And I've made a very big reputation for being somebody of integrity and somebody who's willing to stand up and say what's right. And there's very few people who do that and provide that opportunity to people. And there's also a lot of other people who won't hold people to task. And I know that if I'm saying this, that you're going to ask me why I believe this, and you're going to at least put that to the test to see if I'm just somebody who's trying to take advantage of the situation, or if this is something that is a conviction that I'm like, if this is something I actually truly believe. And that's the difference between somebody who is, well, actually has something of value to this community and to this industry and to this field. And I'm trying to get to the truth of what the phenomena is, but also expose the truth of what the phenomena and how it's presented is. Because for a very long time, and most people don't know this, ufology, paranormal, the strange, the weird and mysterious things of life in this world, their presentation, the way that it is now, it comes from the same place as the presentation of pro wrestling, which is vaudeville. It's the carnivals. It's the freak shows as well as the feats of strength or the tests of martial skill. Well, as we all know, pro wrestling was a lot of fixed matches at first, and then it became staged athletics where the individuals played characters with predetermined matches that were presented for large crowds. And the promoters themselves did not allow any word of that fact getting out. And that happened for 40 years. Until Vince McMahon Sr., one of the greatest business minds of his generation, our generation, and in terms of promotion, in terms of presentation, showmanship, essentially turned around and said, well, the business has to change, and it has to change for the better if we're going to survive. And he adapted, and he adapted quickly. And he went from his business almost being out of business to being the largest of its kind in the world within 20 years, being a multi-billion-dollar company. And the entire expectation around it was, we're going to have the clear understanding to the people in front of us that this is a show and it is entertainment. It is meant to engage. It is meant to critique society. It is meant to have these lessons that you're supposed to think about. And at the end of the day, it's about the standard archetypal good versus evil, good guy versus bad guy, what's right versus what's wrong, and all the shades of gray in between. But that distinction is actually made. And it was made. That's why it's called sports entertainment, not pro wrestling.
I get that, and I understand with where you're going, but do you not feel that you are putting yourself on your own little island by having such a strong stance against this? Because are you flexible then?
I'm always willing to admit that I'm wrong if I'm wrong. And that's the difference between somebody with integrity and somebody who's going to avoid the issue. If I mess up, I'll admit to it 100%. Because, you know what, at the end of the day, people have to learn, and I'm not perfect. I'm at least I'd like to think that I'm fairly intelligent and have reasoning capacity to look at evidence objectively, and I understand logical fallacy and understand critical thinking and the process of investigating information, how to cross-reference pieces of data, and knowing that you need to be able to have multiple data points to prove something true. That at least prove it and then confirm it. That's just good research. And if there is a theory that I make and I go through the entire process and I'm proven wrong, I've done it. I've done it on the show. But I do have to say, though, I'm usually not wrong. And lately, and I'm talking within the last 6 months, I've been right a lot. And I'm talking about 99% right. And that is not a exaggeration with regards to things. I make calls based on certain observations, based on my understanding of how I've experienced things, not just how it's presented, but also understanding the behind the scenes. What is the people's motivations to be able to say what they're saying? And I've been proven right more often than not. So am I on an island? I have to say no, because worldwide, every single week, my show reaches anywhere between 130 to 140 some countries on, North America, South America, Australia, Africa, Asia, Europe. So six continents, with our audience being about 100,000. I started 2 years ago. I run the show out of my basement. We're as I try and keep it as professional as possible. I'm also a one-man operation when it comes to in studio. So in that regard, yeah, I'm kind of an island. No, I have individuals with me as well who do believe the same things that I believe in terms of integrity, the necessity for research, and the necessity to say, is it a dinosaur in a field or is it a log? And then be able to admit, well, I can't tell if it is or not, so I have to say, well, maybe, and leave it at that until something else comes along to be able to confirm it.
I've seen that picture. I know the picture you're talking about.
And it's a running joke, like oh, I found this thing. Oh, it's a dinosaur. No, log, and that's okay. The joke.
Well, so. I'm gonna put you on the spot here. What have you been right about? Not that I'm. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna go all Canadian here for our American listeners and say, I'm not trying to put you down on that or put you, or anything like that. But what have you been right on that you were professing that turned out to be complete bunk?
Let's see, that I was professing that turned out to be complete bunk. I need to preface this with I'm not a person who believes in this conspiracy theory. I'm not somebody who researched it extensively in any way, shape, or form seriously, because I just thought the entire thing was insane, because I understand what I call the real world of geopolitics and intelligence operations, which is the QAnon or the Q phenomena, which is if anybody's into it, then you know. If you don't like what I'm about to say, pretty well I'm going to ignore anything you have to say on the matter. If you were against the fact that it was real, then hey, good on you. But your assessment of it may still be wrong. But I looked at it and said, like that's a like the QAnon, that was an intelligence op. My take on it's a little bit different, because everyone is looking at the evidence of, well, this person and this person and this person said, well, it's an intelligence op or it's a psyop, which is usually an indication that it's supposed to be an American intelligence operation. Unfortunately, I have a little bit of a family history having opposition to totalitarian governments in Eastern European countries and communist countries, which may have had various intelligence agencies involved in our family, against our family, or in one way or another, or being targeted by them. So the CIA attacking American citizens, or trying to be able to suppress the truth, as it were, the other side does it too, and they've been doing it for a lot longer. I could tell you that, as far as going against the Western homogeny. And I'm a firm believer that the QAnon phenomena was a Russian intelligence psyop. And everything that I've looked at and I didn't even need to look at that much. WikiLeaks has been compromised since 2016, since October, right before the election. When the moment that their hashes didn't match, that was the indication that they were compromised. And I knew, like, I looked at the conversation as it was actually happening about what was going on. And the same thing was happening. And also you need to understand is that when it comes to Eastern European and Slavic intelligence agencies, so like the GRU, the FSB, the KGB, the idea of active measures of disinformation and propaganda, they're masters at this and have been for decades. And most people don't understand it. I'm Slavic. This has been that's my culture. A lot of people in the Western world, from the millennials to just born, did not live in that world. They didn't understand that world. They didn't grow up in the Cold War. They didn't grow up as a child understanding, or at least not understanding, why it was that they were so restricted in terms of where they could go and who they could see and how far away they could go from their house. And it was only until later that they realized that it was a very good possibility that they were being targeted by intelligence services from an adversarial country. They don't have that understanding. For them, it could be, it's domestic terror or domestic crime. Or unfortunately, you sometimes have organized crime from other countries, but that's besides the point. So that's the world that I grew up in terms of understanding the tactics, learning how to protect against it. So when I see there is a individual who is very, very well prominent and for some reason has a lot of buzz around them in terms of their reporting ability, I go and look up what that person's reporting has been like. And when I find that there are certain consistencies that are straight across the board from start to finish the same, I tend to question that. Because, well, if you are trying to either play that you are for something, but at the same time you're attacking the most important thing and making it seem like it's not an important thing, and with regards to, and I'm not going to say the name because I actually don't know if this person's real or not, but I do know that they've been reporting for a very long time through Medium. And every single one of their articles from the start until current has been consistent in criticizing of the Mueller investigation, the investigation into the Skripal investigation, as well as being pro-Russian in one way or another. They can be anti-Trump. They can be completely right-wing. And trust me, if you know who I'm talking about, go back and read the history for their reports. There was a very stark transition in terms of tone from her earliest articles until the latest. But if the same themes are present and those are consistent, that's a very big red flag to me, because that's trying to shape opinion. And if that individual is commenting on an organization who may have been compromised, and that organization is referencing another individual who may or may not be real and who may or may not have stolen 2 terabytes, or at least tried to transport 2 terabytes of that country's secret information to Russia, claiming that they had some type of what's the term? I'm trying to help.
Collusion?
No, asylum. I'm trying to seek asylum from Russia. And if people don't understand when it comes to the Russian people are not the problem. Like, the Russian people are people just like you and me. Their government is, as a lot of people in the conspiracy theory think that our government generally is. You have an individual who runs that country who is worth purportedly $200 billion. $200 billion, not million, billion dollars. Worth more than anybody else on the planet. You know, when he got into power the first time, he was a public servant. He probably made about as much as you and I combined. Maybe less, because it's the ruble. And that individual slowly acquired power, acquired massive amounts of wealth and influence, and turned the entire political structure on its head. In addition to that, crushed all opposition, reporters, anything in his way. and the general joke is that this, reporter was found committed suicide. Yeah, it's the strangest thing. He was found with 2 bullets in the back of his head, and and suffered from an 18-story fall. Like, I don't know how this happens, and it was consistent across the board. 2 bullets to the back of the head. That's actually, believe it or not, a ex-Yugoslav communist method of execution, and quite prolific that their security services actually had as far as eliminating individuals internationally. You can Wikipedia that if you like. So knowing the world that type of intelligence agency is coming from, and knowing that saying that publicly is putting even me at danger or me at risk, considering that there was a reporter that was recently just assassinated in Ukraine for speaking out against the Kremlin. With all those things going together, and the fact that individual who was transporting those 2 terabytes of data, allegedly, I don't know for sure, this is what the current claim is, that person also had claimed to have been a sock puppet account. What a sock puppet account is that you have an account that is pretending to be somebody else or is actually from somebody else, and then someone else, an actor or an operator from an intelligence agency, will be using that account as them to basically pretend to send messages out as that person. Or maybe that person is actually all right. But it sounded very interesting that the report was that person who was seeking asylum is in Russia, and they were terminally ill somehow. And the idea is that they were made sick somehow by the deep state. Well, I don't know if the deep state exists or not, but I do know that the deep state is used exclusively to throw accusations against the supposed parts of the U.S. government against the current administration. And I have a great respect for the office of the president. I have a great respect for the U.S. Constitution and the values and the principles that it represents. It is the greatest document and the greatest set of principles that has ever existed in our society, period. It is the only constitution for any country to still exist since its inception. That is a fact nobody else knows and nobody else talks about. And the reason is because the democracy is supposed to be that strong, and it is. So when you have individuals who are using deep state to undermine those principles that have supposed to have been upheld by the elected officials that the people keep electing, then the question is, why are they doing that? Interesting part. I'm also in advertising, fairly good at it. Multiple awards for writing, strategy, creative direction, whatnot. Have been using social media since it was called new media, which to anybody under the age of 18, that was back before you were born. So when I hear that Cambridge Analytica had tested the terms deep state specifically on the demographic within the United States that would be most receptive and understanding to it, which is the conspiracy theory community, which is the more right-leaning community, because they already do not have a trust of government. So they are the most easily manipulable in their perceptions to for whatever is being said by the government that, no, it can't be true. I'm going to disregard that completely. Did you read into it? Did you double check it? Have you completely lost faith in your institutions? So those together, and seeing that people like WikiLeaks, like the individuals who are writing the articles, like the individuals who follow those articles, the people who are benefiting from those individuals and those accounts are stating that QAnon was a LARP, or it was done by the deep state, or it was done by a PSYOP, that they're insinuating that it is a United States intelligence operation. And I can tell you right now, for what you guys have going on in the States right now, my goodness, you have a social media propaganda campaign that is, oh my, Stalin would be head over heels enjoyed for what he's actually for what his system of government has resulted in many, many years after his death. And that you actually have two forms of this manipulation going on. One of them being the standard media operations, which is being carried through for the older demographic, and for the younger demographic, which believes that they're smarter than the average bear and loves a good mystery and loves to be able to research things. So knowing the tactics and the fact that the general consensus was within the intelligence community that it was an operation, and that it was specifically geared towards that younger demographic, when it came out being not true, and everyone else is saying, oh, it's the deep state. Okay, what proof do you have of that besides public opinion? Did you research any articles? Do you know anything about the history? And I will, I'll eat my hat if I'm wrong on that. I still think I'm right. It's still playing out. But I'm willing to say that I'm right on that one. And this is on record. So in 6 months' time, if it is actually found out, or 8 months' time, or 10 months' time, whenever Mueller's report comes out, we'll see.
I appreciate for taking us down the long highway rather than the shortcut on that one.
It's a good story, huh?
It is a very good story. Very good story. Sometimes some people don't get into much detail. That was fantastic. Appreciate that. When you come to your conclusion then in regards to truth, well, I guess there really is no conclusion as of yet because we haven't solved anything. But how do you then go about, calling out truthers? Because there's a lot of truthers out there, Chris, who are making some extraordinary claims. Whether it's David Wilcock, whether it's Corey Good, whether it's other people, the B-level conspiracy theorists down to the Z-level conspiracy theorists. And there are so many topics that have pushed people over the edge. Okay, whether it's Pizzagate, whether it's the Queen feeding off of virgin children, and that's the reason why she's alive, because heaven forbid, nobody lives to 90, so my grandmother must be a reptilian feeding off of virgin children as well. And there are so many people out there using this crap as fact, and they have the nerve to call themselves truthers. That's what bugs me. That's what really, really bugs me, is there's a real difference between finding out the truth and calling yourself a truther by going into, areas where there is no information. Okay, I take this whole Pizzagate thing. Now, I'm not saying that the problem isn't happening, all right? I'm not denying that whatsoever. However, if any research on that building shows, and I did minimal research on this, they were saying that, these government officials are having, sex with children, and there's a child trading in the basement of this Pizzagate, and it's a brothel of young girls, and yet there is no basement in the building. That's proven. That's the kind of stuff that bugs me, where we get these truthers who won't let things go, that they are so right, and yet there's a difference between truth and just saying, hey, let's just get to the bottom of the story, and then there's this garbage that people are hiding as truth. That's a real problem for the entire fringe media, my friend.
Well, that's because people tend to accept dogma as fact, and they're willing to accept what's being told to them. And again, like anybody on this show or who listens to this show, you can take what I'm saying and you can look into it yourself and come to your own conclusion. If you agree with me, that's up to you. If you disagree with me, that's your own thing. The only thing that I cannot abide by is somebody who is willing to say that they will never change their mind, or they will never look at the evidence, or that they will never consider the other point of view. And if I have a very strong opinion about something, it's probably because I have spent a lot of time researching it, testing it, making sure that there was some validity to the theory. And at the same time, I'm still willing to put the theory at a threshold that is not 100% or 99.99 to infinity%. I'm going to give that ability to say, okay, this is a very possible reality of what the situation we're dealing with. And as more evidence piles up, then it just keeps going until I actually can confirm. But most people can't confirm 100%. And that's how you keep an open mind, is to be able to say, I could be wrong. And I'm willing to look into it. And I'm willing to look into it more, because I don't want to just confirm my own bias. And I just don't want to take things that are presented to me as is. So that ability to realize that we as individuals are fallible and realize our own weaknesses and realize that we're not perfect and that it's okay to be wrong unless it is to, you're at a bridge and let's say there's a question of what's your favorite color, because if you answer the wrong one, you could just, fly over the edge. For anybody who's old enough, you get that reference. So I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with being wrong, and I'll admit I've admitted it on camera. I've admitted it on the show and say, hey, remember that thing I made a big deal about that I thought it was 100%, or 99% certain of? Yeah, I totally was wrong on that, and this is why. This is what's going on. Take full responsibility, and away I go. And a lot of people who are out there, and especially in the upper echelons of this community, they don't do that. And this is an example. And again, you've mentioned To the Stars Academy. You've mentioned individuals who are involved. And most people have not done the research and looked at the reporting of the situation. And that, let's say, for instance, and again, I would have to double check this because I have not in a couple of days. There was a report in the New York Times and WAPO by there were a group of individuals, but one of those individuals is really big into this field of research, or reporting on it at least. That was considered the gold standard as far as reporting, the start of the tip of the spear as far as UFO disclosure, some people said. Okay. The only claim to being valid or correct for this type of very important information was based on documents that one of those individuals had claimed to have seen and that others in that group had claimed to have seen, which was being presented to by certain other individuals within To the Stars Academy, and I believe a couple other reporters. That video that was also being presented as released by and were courtesy of the Department of Defense. There were certain requests for via the Freedom of Information Act to find out if the Department of Defense had actually released it. And there is a lot of hubbub about, well, it went through the doxer, which is the standard filtering of information to make sure that it's not violating national security, which is actually important because if something's released that gives an advantage to, let's say, China, and China's able to develop a weapon from that can bypass defenses, that means you individuals in the States are actually less safe. And obviously, the government exists to make sure that you can go about your lives to do whatever you want to be able to do based on the laws of the land. That's why they exist, is to be able to protect the borders. Now, to make sure that happens, it has to go through a certain vetting process. That vetting process has been claimed by To the Stars Academy to have been done. FOIA requests have actually proven, and this is through the Black Vault, who the owner of is actually a friend of certain individuals who have been caught up in this in terms of the reporting. The FOIA requests state that, well, there's a lot of contradictory information that the FOIA requests are either stating, or the rejection letters are stating, or the people behind the departments themselves are stating, such as the inability to be able to find a resignation letter for Luis Elizondo, which is on theblackvault.com. So he's claimed to have been the head of this department. So far, we have no proof based on the fact that he's actually said it himself, and it's being vetted by certain individuals. Where's the documentation? The video itself, there was no government markings on it, and there was no FOIA request for it, and it did not get released by the DoD, and that is by those officials based on the documentation presented in that recording. So,
my friend, I gotta cut you off. I wholeheartedly, you know what? I want to bring you back either June 11th or 12th. We're going to talk about that because we need to go in depth. We need more than an hour. I'm sure you would agree.
I love a good teaser.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right, you hold on, Mr. Zugs. That's a Canadian hockey term right there. Take the first three letters of the last name and add an S. That's a hockey nickname right there. We call him Zugs around here. Chris George Zuger from the Den of Lore on YouTube. We also had on Leela Hutchison in hours 1 and 2 talking gems, crystals, and consciousness. We're going to get Chris back on very, very soon. We need it. We need to learn a little bit more about this guy. He's a fellow Canuck. How could he be so wrong? So wrong. So wrong. Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking himself and us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Want to say a big shout out to all of you listening at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be, along with everybody participating in the Veterans Club, SOR Space Travelers on Facebook, on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, on Spreaker, and on Periscope tonight. You were all awesome. Thank you for allowing me to snafu my way through hour number 1. You are the best. You really are. And you make us bigger and better every single night, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good one, everyone. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Rock on.